Why did the room feel colder the moment the door locked behind her? It wasn't the air. It was the silence. The kind that presses into your chest. The kind that waits. Aline Arcade stood in the center of the room, boots placed neatly beneath the steel table, hands relaxed at her sides. Her uniform jacket had already been taken. Her belt lay coiled beside it, as if someone had been careful with her dignity. Careful in a way that felt rehearsed. Fluorescent lights hummed above her, not loudly, just enough to remind her that time was still moving, even if nothing else was. 3 men. 1 woman. A locked door. They didn't rush, they never did. They circled her like paperwork with legs. "You're showing a clearance sync issue," one of them said casually, tapping a tablet that displayed nothing real. "Secondary inspection." Secondary wasn't in any manual, but it had become their favorite word. Alina didn't ask questions. She already knew what came next. She had known since that morning, since the false summons, since the narrow hallway, since the lock clicked shut like a coffin lid. 6 women had stood in this exact spot before her. One of them had left a note that started with, "They made me strip." Alina bent slowly and removed her boots, set them side by side, precise, controlled. Not submissive, disciplined. "Undershirt too," another voice added, too casual, too practiced. Her fingers moved to the buttons. 1, 2, 3. Inside, something tightened, not fear, not yet. It was something colder. A memory of files. Of names. Of a photograph of a young woman in dress whites, whose eyes still believed in fairness. Alina didn't look at them when the final words were spoken. "Get naked." Her fingers brushed the waistband of her uniform. A tremor, barely visible, passed through her hand. To them it looked like shame. It was. A coin-sized sensor, hidden in the fabric, vibrated once. Somewhere far above this forgotten room, servers came alive. Lights blinked. Recordings began. And the balance of power shifted quietly. No alarms. No warning. Just truth starting to breathe. Alina took one slow breath. Not a frightened breath. A combat breath. Because sometimes the most dangerous moment isn't when you're attacked. It's when the trap finally closes on the wrong people. Why did her pulse slow when his voice told her to step forward? Not because she trusted him. Because she recognized the pattern. The way he stood slightly sideways, blocking the door without making it obvious. The way the second man drifted just behind her shoulder, pretending to check something that didn't need checking. The way the third leaned against the wall, pretending not to care, which was always the most dangerous one. They thought they were in control. Alina stepped forward exactly 1 pace. The tablet chirped softly, a meaningless sound meant to feel official. "Remove your belt," he said. She reached down, unfastened it, and laid it beside her jacket. Her movements were slow, measured, not hesitant, not rushed. Every inch of her posture said compliance, and that was exactly what they wanted to see. They didn't see her weight shift subtly into her back heel. They didn't see her shoulders lower just a fraction. They didn't see the way her breathing changed, deeper, slower, steadier. They didn't know what combat breath looked like. "Shirt next," Bridger said. Her fingers rose to the fabric again. She lifted it halfway, just enough to make Cross lean forward. That was when she saw it in his eyes. Not professionalism. Not duty. Ownership. And something inside her hardened. She thought of Rachel. Of the way the handwriting had slanted at the bottom of the page. Of the sentence that had been underlined 3 times. "I can't do it again." Alina let the shirt rise another inch. Cross stepped closer, his hand lifted, not to inspect, not to search, just to touch. She turned her head slowly. "Remove your hand," she said quietly. He laughed. The sound was light, dismissive, confident. He leaned in. And that was the last mistake he would make while standing. Her right arm snapped upward, not wild, not angry, precise, surgical. The wedge of her hand drove into the joint of Bridger's arm. There was a sharp sound, cartilage, not bone, and the fake scanner clattered across the floor. Before Bridger could understand pain, Alina was already moving. She stepped inside his balance, pressed 2 fingers into the nerve cluster beneath his shoulder. His legs gave out. Not dramatically. Just gone. Draven lunged, too late. She pivoted, let his momentum betray him. Her elbow met the radial nerve in his forearm. His grip failed before his brain caught up. She dropped low, scooped his center of gravity, and he hit the mat flat, breath leaving him in a dull, hollow sound. 2 down. Cross shouted, a wordless sound made of fear pretending to be anger. His hand went for his comm. She crossed the space in 3 strides. Her palm struck his sternum, not to break him, not to injure, but to turn off his body for just long enough. He slid down the wall. Breathing. But broken. 8 seconds. The room went quiet except for 3 men learning that power is fragile. Alina bent, picked up the useless scanner, and placed it neatly on the table beside her belt. Then she buttoned her shirt. Slowly. Deliberately. The way someone does when they have nothing left to prove. She looked at the dead camera in the corner. "This facility is compromised," she said calmly, and walked out. She didn't rush the hallway. She didn't look back. Because justice doesn't need to run. It just needs to arrive. Outside, sunlight burned against the concrete. Her heart was still racing, not with fear, but with something heavier. Because this wasn't over. This was just the opening wound. And somewhere on this base, a young woman was scrubbing floors that didn't need scrubbing. Someone who still believed she was invisible. Alina was already walking toward her. Why was the youngest woman in the mess hall scrubbing the same clean tile for the 3rd time in 10 minutes? Not because it was dirty. Because it gave her something to do with her hands. Because if her hands stayed busy, maybe her thoughts would stay quiet. The corporal didn't look up at first. Her shoulders were hunched forward. Her hair was pulled back tight, regulation tight, but her eyes were hollow in a way that uniforms can't hide. She was 22, maybe 23. Too young to already look tired of living inside her own skin. Alina slowed as she approached, not to sneak, to respect the fragile space around fear. The girl flinched when she finally noticed her. "Please," she whispered immediately, "don't talk to me here." Alina knelt as if she were inspecting the floor, kept her voice low. "My name is Cade." The girl shook her head. "They watch always." "Not everyone," Alina said softly. The corporal swallowed. Her fingers tightened on the rag. "You're not liaison." "No." A pause, a breath that trembled. "Then what are you?" Alina thought of the files, of 7 names, of 1 photograph that would never grow older. "I'm the one they should have sent first." The rag slipped from the girl's hand. Her voice cracked. "They scheduled me again." Alina's jaw tightened just once, controlled. "When?" "Next week. They call it recertification." Her eyes filled, but she didn't let the tears fall. "I know what it means." Alina placed a steady hand on her shoulder. "You won't go." The girl looked up sharply. Hope flickered, then fear smothered it. "You can't promise that." "I already did." The corporal studied her face like she was trying to memorize it. "Rachel went there," she whispered. "She tried to tell someone, they moved her, then she was gone." Alina nodded. "I know." Something in the girl's chest seemed to break loose. Tears spilled quietly. "I didn't misunderstand what they did to me," she said. I believe you. Those 3 words landed like oxygen. Alina stood. Stay visible, stay around people. When this ends, I'll need you to tell the truth. A shaky nod. Alina walked away before anyone could connect them. But eyes were already on her. Garrett Rohr noticed her that afternoon. He bumped her shoulder, not hard, just enough to establish something. Watch yourself, he said sweetly. I will, Alina replied. That was all it took. 2 hours later, Cole Draven appeared with his tablet. ID discrepancy, he said. Secondary inspection. She looked at the tablet, then at his eyes. Where? Pi Zone 3. Her pulse didn't change. Lead the way. The hallway was narrow, too narrow. Draven in front, Bridger at her side, Cross behind. Shepherding. Her tongue pressed once against the roof of her mouth. The sensor activated. Somewhere far away, people were watching now. The door opened. The trap welcomed her back in. But this time, the trap was already bleeding. Why did the lock sound louder the second time? Not because it had changed. Because she had. The metal click echoed through the small room like a closing chapter, not on her, but on everything they had built here. The fluorescent lights hummed again. Same table, same dead camera in the corner, same 3 men. Different balance of power. They didn't know it yet. Draven placed the tablet on the table like a prop in a bad play. Bridger leaned against the wall. Cross stood just behind her shoulder again, close enough to feel her breath. Secondary inspection, Draven said. Alina didn't answer. She didn't need to. Remove your boots. She did. Belt. It landed on the table. Undershirt. Her fingers paused. Just long enough. Inside her waistband, the hidden sensor pulsed again, steady, calm, a heartbeat that wasn't hers. Cross leaned in. Don't make this difficult. She turned her head slightly. Remove your hand. He smiled. And reached anyway. The room ended in 8 seconds. But the sound that stayed behind wasn't fists or bodies. It was breathing. 3 men trying to remember how. Alina buttoned her shirt and walked out. The hallway was empty, shift change. Perfect timing for the wrong people. She didn't go back to her quarters. She went to communications. A young technician looked up when she entered, coffee in hand, half asleep, not ready for history. She placed a black credential wallet on the desk. Open it. His hands shook when he did. The color drained from his face. I need a secure channel, Alina said calmly, and then I need this room locked. By the time the satellite link confirmed, the machine was already moving. Orders were spoken. Servers answered. A base that had learned to hide things began to shake. Alina stepped back into the sunlight, knowing something heavy was already falling. But evidence isn't justice. It's only the door to it. And doors have to be kicked all the way open. Why did the administrative building feel heavier than the interrogation room? Because paper can bury more people than fists ever will. The hallway smelled like toner and dust, the kind of place where careers went quiet, where complaints went to disappear. Alina pressed her wristband to the reader. The lock disengaged. The records room welcomed her with silence. Rows of file cabinets, boxes stacked like forgotten gravestones. She logged into the terminal. 7 names appeared. Each file looked the same. Complaint filed. Reviewed. Resolved internally. No further action. No witnesses. No investigation. No humanity. Then she opened Rachel's. There it was, the psychological evaluation order. 2 days before the death. Not care. Control. Alina copied everything. Complaints. Review her records, digital trails. Then she found the truth that made her breath stop. The reviewing officer, married to the contractor's vice president. The silence had a signature. She transmitted everything. Behind her, a voice spoke. That's a restricted terminal. Garrett Rohr stood in the doorway, hand near his weapon. You just ended your career, he said. No, Elena replied softly. I ended yours. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't threaten. She stated the future. You ordered a federal officer into a fabricated compliance inspection. It was recorded, uploaded, and duplicated. His face emptied of color. She stepped past him. You should have left us alone. Outside, rotors were already echoing across the base. Justice doesn't announce itself. It arrives. Why did the gunship feel louder than the courtroom ever would? Because some endings don't need words. They need witnesses. Its rotors tore through the air above the base, scattering dust across concrete that had held too many secrets. Personnel stopped what they were doing. Conversations died mid-sentence. Phones slipped into pockets. Everyone watched. Elena stood near the landing zone, hands steady, heart quiet. The men who had believed they were untouchable were led out in cuffs, heads down, voices gone. Their boots made hollow sounds, not strong ones, just echoes. Inside the mess hall, the young corporal stood frozen near the doorway. Their eyes met. For the first time, she wasn't shrinking. She was standing. 2 months later, Elena stood inside a chapel filled with uniforms and quiet grief. Rachel's photograph rested at the front, too young, too still. Her father sat in the front row, holding a folded flag against his chest. Elena stepped to the podium. She was strong, she said softly, but the system was. No shouting. No speeches. Just truth. Silence isn't neutrality, she continued. It's permission, and permission has consequences. She paused. Sometimes dignity doesn't speak, it simply acts. Outside, the wind moved through the trees. Somewhere, another base was already being watched. Another door was already being measured. And Elena Cade was already walking toward it.